All right, Catherine, take it away.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to thank you for joining me today for this entry-level driver training and drug and alcohol clearinghouse presentation. So like Vicki said, my name is Catherine, and I am the division administrator for the Alaska division of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or FMCSA. Before I get started, I just wanted to extend my appreciation to the University of Fairbanks for hosting this outreach as part of the TTAP and RTAP program, specifically to Vicki, who put a lot of effort to make this happen. We'll go ahead and get started. So we'll be starting with entry-level driver training. These are the topics that we'll be covering, and then we'll also go into drug and alcohol clearinghouse, also known as DACH. This is meant to provide a high-level overview on ELDT with a specific scope for Alaskans. There has been a lot of questions recently about requirements to register in the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, also known as DACH. This will hopefully clear up those requirements. Please do ask your questions throughout as we go through, and I will try to answer as many as possible. We will have 2 areas where we will pause and go over those questions as we go through each section. So we'll start with entry-level driver training. Most people know what this is, but in case you don't, because we are doing a high-level overview, entry-level driver training is focused on those trying to get commercial driver's licenses. And you can read through the top part, but basically, are you an entry-level driver? The question is answered very straightforward. If you are trying to obtain for the first time a Class A or B license, then you are an entry-level driver. If you are trying to upgrade an existing Class B license to a Class A, you are an entry-level driver. And if you are trying to obtain for the first time a school bus, passenger, or hazardous materials endorsement, then you are also an entry-level driver. This went into effect officially in 2022, and so if you did not already have your CLP by then you fall into one of these categories. There are specific ELDT testing hubs. This is where they exist right now. I do know one is potentially going into another area, but last discussions were it's not in place yet. So for now, it is in Anchorage, Fairbanks, Palmer, Juneau, and Soldotna. If you're located in one of those places on the road system, or you or one of your drivers would need to travel to one of these locations in order to complete the ELDT prior to getting your CDL. However, if you're not on the road system and you are not in one of these communities, there are some exceptions in place. I put this up here just so that you're aware of where it's at. To summarize, basically, if you are off the road system and you are in an area where the average annual daily traffic count is 499 or less, you fall into this category. And so basically what it means is that ELDT is waived, and so is skills testing. It is just a knowledge test, and that's handled by DMV. If you're not sure if you're one of those communities, you can go on to DMV's website. They have a list of communities that fall within this exception. There is something that was new that was put into place in December of 2022 and has been running since then. The exemption also alleviates for an additional 14 communities, and I'll go over those shortly, that alleviates the requirement for both ELDT and it basically is a modified skills test as a result of the lack of infrastructure in that area. And again, I'm not going to read this to you. You can read it later, or you can look up the exemption itself at a later time. So these are the existing hubs, as you can see. And then in addition to that, these are the communities, the 14 communities that also have the exemption. So they are an exempted community that is in place until December of this year, the 28th. I do not know if an extension will occur at this time, but if a license is issued, that license is good for the period. It is specifically to be used in these communities. So if you are in one of these communities, this could apply to you. If you do need a training provider for ELDT, here is the link, and I will also drop it into the chat. If I can do that correctly. I don't know if I'm doing that right. If I'm doing that wrong, Vicki, if you can drop in the main one, I'd appreciate it. If you do need a training provider, this is where the information is, and the link is right here as well. You can actually set a location. It's right on the main page of where you would like it set. Please keep in mind that if you are doing the theory portion, it can be done online. So pay attention to where the provider is that you're selecting, but behind the wheel training will have to be done locally here in Alaska. If you run into any issues, there is an excellent FAQ. It's a little further down on the page, so you'll just have to scroll down. It looks just like this. There is tons of information, and if you call our office, I'm sure I'll be referring to you to that location as well. I'll go ahead and pause here before we move on to the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse to see if there are any questions.
All right, there is a posted question asking, can you confirm that the 14 communities only require a knowledge test and that it is not modified due to infrastructure limitations?
So let me go see if I can go back. Let me go back in this thing. Yes, so that's correct. If you are in one of the 14 communities, it's a modified skills test, and because the ELDT and 380, it references the requirement to do like get onto a highway and exit a highway and multiple lanes of a highway. Obviously, locations like Kodiak, Nome, Bethel, they don't have highways. They don't have the infrastructure, so they should have a modified skills test to be able to do that. That is what the exemption allows. And there is no requirement because of the exemption to do ELDT. So it's a knowledge test and a modified skills test. It is considered a restriction 8 license, which means it can only be used in those communities. But yes, thank you. That's a very good question.
All right.
Any more?
Does not look like it. So moving on.
If you do have questions about ELDT that come up after this, please do not hesitate to ask. Okay, the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. So the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, the requirement for users, including employers, drivers, consortiums, also known as CTPAs, MROs, SAPs, and state driver's licensing agencies, the requirement to be registered and start using it actually occurred January 23rd, 2023. So it's a little over a year ago. Those users who need to sign up will need to sign up into the clearinghouse in order to do a series of different things depending on which you are. So what actions can users take in the clearinghouse? They can record information such as violation, enter a driver's return to duty progress, follow-up tests. Drivers who get queries can consent to those queries from prospective employers or by their designated CTPAs. They can be refused or approved. And this does meet the querying requirement for employers. And then down here, you can see there's a link that I've included. If you need more information about specific actions a user can take, you can go there. If you are a driver and you need to enroll, you will have to start by creating a login.gov, and then you can register in the clearinghouse. Once registered, then you can provide consent for pre-employment and full queries, or review any violations that may or may not be on your account. It is linked to your CDL, so if an employer enters something before you were driving, it will allow that to link to your account after you make it. If you are an employer, you will have to take a couple of extra steps. You will need to get a portal account and a login.gov. If you already have those, then it is quite easy. At that point, you will just need to add the user roles for DAC and then finalize the registration in the clearinghouse at that point. If you're an owner operator, I get this question a lot. If you would actually start by registering as an employer, not a driver. So you'll start as an employer. You will link your FMCSA portal account that you should hopefully already be using for your DOT number. And then when you go through, there's an option, as you can see here, to select owner operator. And that will give you that capabilities as an owner operator. So that will take care of both your owner and driver account all at once. At that point, you can designate your CTPA and you can then verify all of your CDL information, and that will automatically link the two. So this is how you sign up. If you need assistance, this is where you would select the contact information. There is a help desk form that you can fill out, or there's a number that you can call. And then I highly recommend you look at the useful guides and tips. I've included 2 brochures that Vicki is going to provide to you today. And that is for both drivers and employers, but there are so many resources that are available there to help you understand the rules, requirements, and get you registered. So one of the other questions that I've had, and I just want to include this one here, is if I have a violation as a driver or I'm an employer and I have a violation, can it be challenged? And the answer is yes. The most common way is through a driver petition through data queues. You go into the data queue system and it's called, it's just a DAC petition. And you would enter that information about and why, please include as much information as possible if you're the driver, why you're challenging that violation. And then at that point, it'll be processed by somebody with the DAC team who will resolve that petition. And usually they reach out to, depending on what it is, they will reach out to the employer. So make sure that you maintain documentation in reference to any entered violations. These are some helpful contacts, both for our division office here, also for the main help desk if you're trying to sign up for portal, and the website again here with the contact information where you can fill that out, or the Clearinghouse help desk line. All right, so that concludes the presentation. Are there any more questions that have come in?
All right, we have 2 questions that have come in. The first question is ELDT required to remove an off-highway restricted CDL?
Yes. Yes, because if you have a restriction 7, it means that you can only operate in those communities. So you would have to come into an ELDT area and then retest with a standard CDL test.
All
I
right.
highly recommend in that unique circumstance, you reach out to DMV to see if they can accept any portion of that existing test.
All right. The next question is, if there's no testing site in those 14 community, does DMV manage the knowledge test, and how do they obtain the skills test?
So DMV, they are the state driver's licensing agency, obviously here in Alaska. They manage their own program, but my understanding is that if you are in need of a skills test in that community, you would reach out and try to schedule with either them or one of their third parties if they serve that area.
All right. Any other questions? People are welcome to either raise their hand and I'll unmute you to ask yourself, or post in the Q&A. I added both of the brochures that Katherine mentioned in the chat, so people can access them that way. All right. Well, Catherine, can you sort of summarize the situation with CDL licenses in Alaska and what their requirements are for rural Alaska versus city Alaska?
Yes,
Once
happy
again.
to do so. So there is an exception in place that is a permanent exception in 383 that allows for very small communities. It's a list of, I think, over 170, if I remember correctly, communities that fall within that jurisdiction. I think they are locally referred to as bush licenses. We call them off-road system community licenses. But yes, that is the first option available. There are the 14 communities exemption that went into place a year ago. This was an attempt to try to provide relief to communities that do not meet the exception requirement, but aren't large enough and don't have the infrastructure to accommodate the ELDT requirements. So that's the exception, and that is 14 communities right now. And they will be able to get a knowledge test and should be able to get a modified skills test. And it does not require them to do ELDT at this time. So that while that exemption is in place between now and December 28th, 2024, they do not have to do ELDT, and they can get what is referred to as Restriction 8 license. The last option is to go to an ELDT location. One of those 5 hubs. My understanding is that there is another one in the works in actually one of those 14 communities that will be opening, that will be providing services as well, but is outside of the ELDT communities, if that makes sense. So there's another DMV office that'll be opening to do CDL. And so if you are not, then there are those 5 locations available. And you can go to one of those 5 locations. They are approved ELDT locations. You can go online to the TPR, which is the third-party register, and locate one in your area or closest to you. And again, that is in Anchorage, Fairbanks, Palmer, Soldotna, and Fairbanks.
I
And
think you
those are the
listed
3
Fairbanks
options.
twice there.
I did say Fairbanks twice. I was like, which one did I miss? Oh, Juneau. I missed Juneau.
There you go. All right. There aren't if one last call for questions.
Please do not hesitate to either email this email. The mcakoff@dot.gov is monitored by everyone in this office, and we are happy to answer any questions that you have. If it's specifically about obtaining a license, I highly encourage you to reach out to DMV. They issue licenses. We just manage the regulations. And if you do have a solution for anything else, you can also that you feel like your community needs an exemption like this, please do contact us. There is a waiver and exemption process that individual companies and communities can apply for themselves individually.
Oh, we just had a new question posted. Is this information available on the DMV website for the Restriction 8 licenses? Because the person indicates they're not seeing it.
I do not know. I will be honest. I don't manage DMV. But if you would like information specifically about the exemption, it is posted on the rulemakings that FMCSA does, and it details the exemption in full. I don't manage DMV's website, but if you were to call and request information about these licenses, I do know that about 24 have been issued to date. They may be referred to as the 14 community exemption, or I'm not sure on their website. But I do know they're being issued, and I do know it is in use.
Great. Anything else from those of us attending? All right, well, in that case, I will stop recording and